Okay, next track is... Wow, really? Right in the middle of the nest? Ugh, this won't be good. Hey there, my name is Salandrak and welcome to episode 3 of the Wagstaff Reign of Giants playthrough. Today we're heading into winter and we'll be hunting for warm clothing. But will we be visited by the mighty Deerclops? Let's find out. At the end of the last episode, I had just crafted some buckets of poop to fertilize my grass and berry bushes. Honestly, there are more effective ways to fertilize stuff than the bucket of poop, but I just think it's really funny to make a bucket of poop, so that's what I do. Since there weren't enough beefalo to get a beefalo hat, and I'm not sure I would want to wear a winter hat, I need to get a thermal stone in place, but need another rock. Conveniently, there's a boulder in the nearby forest, so off I go, grabbing red mushrooms along the way. The nearest spider nest is now level 3, so I decide to clear that out. I'm not sure yet where I want to place the nest, so I just take it with me. On the way back to base, I start digging up tree stumps. Since there's one tree still standing next to the thumper, I turn the machine on only to realize that apparently I'm an idiot and don't need to dig up the stumps myself. Yup, I'm still learning things. Back at base, I use a glommer's goop to make a level 4 fire, then craft my thermal stone. I'll make a storage chest later right next to the fire, but for now Chester will make sure the moleworms don't steal it. Next I do a little inventory and storage organization, whack a few moleworms, and then cycle my drying racks for more big jerky. I like to build up a stockpile of at least 10 as soon as possible just in case Deerclops visits. A little later during the night I decide to sample one of the jerky. Wagstaff's stomach definitely doesn't like it, but as with the honey in last episode, I don't lose any health like the other raw foods, but the normal 20 healing is reduced down to 1, but at least it's still good for sanity. Looking at my map, I decide that I'm really not going to want that beehive so close, especially once spring comes, so I decide to smack it, kill the bees, and then break the hive. Still no bundling wrap recipe though. Once it's morning, I head out on a walrus hunting expedition. I really want to get both a walking stick and a tam-o'-shanter, though I'm not yet sure if I want to use the latter of the two given Wagstaff's eyesight issues. I forgot to take any food with me, but the walruses live practically next door, so it shouldn't be a problem. I think about dropping another spider nest as bait, but then get intercepted by a McTusk and head over to the nest I planted the other day. And sure enough, they start fighting with the spiders. I chase after McTusk and look at that, all 4 items dropped on the first kill. Sweet! I dispatch the spiders only to get ambushed by the hounds, but take them out easily. I decide to try on the tam-o'-shanter, and I'll apologize in advance for the blurry screen that follows. It's overall not too bad without the goggles on, but after a while I start to get annoyed by it, and before too long I decide that I will have to go hunting for a winter Koalefant so I can get a Puffy Vest, but decide to have some more fun with the walruses first. I find the next McTusk near the currently vacant tall bird nest. I really shouldn't have killed that bird the other day, and decide to head over to the third camp I know of. Turns out there are 2 hunting parties out and about, and although I thought they were both engaged with the spiders, one of them takes a few pot shots at me. I decide to go after the one that is moving away from the spiders as he'll be easier to get close to, then turn my attention to the one shooting at me, chasing him a ways before he starts walking home. 2 more hounds after that, and then I loop back to see what other loot is on the ground from the spider battle. Looks like the hounds decided to pick a fight with the Pengulls, which as expected doesn't go in their favor. I go ahead and drop the wee McTusk, then dispatch the last hound that runs over to protect him. These Pengulls will hereafter farm the walruses, but as I've already got everything I need, there's not much reason for me to come back here during the winter. The temperature has dropped below freezing, so I go ahead and place a quick campfire. I also could have just torched the tree right there, but oh well. I pause for a moment to warm up and scrutinize Wagstaff's distortion effect, then throw on my goggles and run back to base. No goop from Glommer, so I make some boards to get an instant level 4 fire. A couple pierogi will get me back to pretty healthy, and oh, there goes Glommer gooping on my base. Always cracks me up when I see that happen. The goop is really the only reason I keep him around. It's good fire fuel and can also be eaten to go crazy fast. I'm not sure at this point if I'll kill him so I can make the old bell item, probably at some point just for the lulz. I spend the rest of the night contemplating my world map, considering Wagstaff's other goggle options, and then playing some whack-a-mole when I remember that I need food for a road trip I've got planned, so make a round of bacon and eggs. I go ahead and eat the pierogi that was in the fridge to top myself up on health, and once it's morning, head over to my thumper to replant some trees around it. I'm trying out the Tam-O-Shanter again and I'm still on the fence on whether I can deal with the blurred vision effect. I swing by base to grab the bacon and eggs and then head out on a road trip. Near the Walrus camp I realize that the hounds must have destroyed my spider nest. A bigger nest will easily take out the hounds and walruses, but level 1 nest isn't quite strong enough. Oh well. I'm heading to the Rocky Land to stock up on gold, niter, flint, and rocks, as well as any ice I can get from Pengulls that happen to spawn. Whenever I get cold, rather than making a fire, I just torch some trees. It's fast and less resource intensive than making a fire, and makes charcoal for later if I remember. Soon I get my first group of Pengulls and see a blurry, suspicious dirt pile and decide to track it down. I'm definitely not loving the blurred vision and decide that I'll just have to adapt to using only goggles on my head, so I'll need a Puffy Vest to stay warm. Unfortunately, it looks like the tracks are heading into the spider-infested portion of the Rocky Land. I decide to warm up with a burning tree and continue the hunt, and sure enough, the tracks lead right onto a pair of level 2 spider nests. I managed to grab this one, only taking a few hits, but now I've got a decent number of spiders chasing me. The next pile isn't on the nest, but there's just too many spiders in the area, and due to me carelessly not keeping my visor on, I get within 2 unarmored hits of death. And as night has fallen with tons of spiders in the area, I decide to call off the hunt. It is just too dangerous. So I run off to a nearby peninsula, drop a fire, then take down the few stragglers that followed me or respond to the death of their comrades. Since there's a few glaciers nearby, I go ahead and mine those, then wait for morning to come so the Spiderlands will be a bit more safe. Once dawn breaks, I resume my rock and ice mining expedition, skirting the edge of the Wood Thing Clockwork set piece. I'm beat up enough right now that I don't dare risk getting into a fight with the Clockworks, and I don't need gears right now anyways. Near a Pengull camp, I go ahead and place a fire for warmth, a new opulent pickaxe, and back to ice mining. As you can see, it really doesn't take long to stock up on lots of ice. Shortly after dusk, I notice Wagstaff's observation that the thermal stone by the fire is a hippopotamus antler. That blurry vision be trippy. A few more gold veins and it's time to head home. Back at base, I grab a globber's goop for the fire, drop my thermal stone to warm up and bait the moleworms, and then harvest the jerky. Then I decide that I don't feel like babysitting the thermal stone, so I nudge Chester closer to the fire and let him hold it for safekeeping. A few morsels get converted to eggs, and then a few pierogi for health restoration, and soon enough it's day 25. Pierogies for breakfast gets me ready for the day, and then I head above base to clear out a level 3 spider nest. If you leave these for too long, they can turn into a spider queen, which I generally prefer to not have right next to my base. A quick trip back to base to drop off a few items, restock my wood, I then stand around for a bit as I contemplate what my next actions are going to be and ultimately decide to go venturing out to try and find a winter Koalefant that isn't likely to land me in a spider infestation, and head up towards the mosaic biome. Along the way, I stock up on green mushrooms and twigs and get to a solitary-ish tree just as I reach freezing temperatures. It's a full moon tonight, so finding tracks should be easy, assuming I can spot them without my goggles on. Since I haven't mapped the area fully, I do some exploration while I'm at it, lighting trees as needed along the way to warm up. Unfortunately, the first night ends and no tracks were found. But hey, I've still got lots of mosaic to explore, so onward into day 26 we go. I periodically start doing a goggle toggle, registered trademark, to make sure I'm not missing some tracks in the blurriness, snack on a mid-morning pierogi in the warmth of a burning tree, and then carry onward, finally finding a suspicious pile in the rocky area. Let the hunt begin! Surprisingly, I have no trouble finding the next step of the chase even without any goggles on, but do take a break to warm up every now and then along the way. Eventually the hunt ends and voila, a winter Koalefant! I'm a bit cold to start fighting it though, so burnt tree it is before chasing the beastie to the end of a peninsula. After finally getting close enough to hit it and initiate combat, I take it down, gather the loot, and then decide while I'm here I might as well mark a wormhole and see where it goes. Ah, the spider forest to the far south. Another sign marks that end. I burn a few trees for warmth, and then pick up the metal potato thing that's on my way back towards base. The full moon helps me navigate through the killer beehive field without any issues, and I then find a werepig near the crank thing set piece and take it down for 2 meat and a pigskin. My old hambat was getting pretty stale, so I go ahead and craft a new one. A quick jog up the road and soon enough I'm back at base. quick check of the crafting recipe and gathering of the supplies, and then I'm the proud owner of a brand new Puffy Vest. No more blurry vision for this Wagstaff. So day 27 is definitely a bit slow to finally have my winter clothing in order, but I'll chalk that up to being unfamiliar with the ins and outs of this particular character. But now that I've got my Puffy Vest on, it's time to start taking care of other matters. First and foremost, being prepared should a Deerclops try to gank me. First things first, I ditch the not likely to ever be worn again Shanter, then toss some meat up on the drying racks. I've got plenty of logs on hand and want to expand my storage with a third utility chest as well as a thermal stone fire fuel chest. Next, I pre-craft a sign to use as Deerclops bait if needed, then move some storage around. I make a new log suit to keep in Chester and then craft some new spectacles and stupidly turn them into a visor rather than using my 50% goggles instead. Oh well, that learning curve still. I'm going to spend the rest of winter mostly exploring the world, so a few more bacon and eggs get cooked up. I'm contemplating going on a bee hunting trip to finally get the bundling wrap recipe and also consider making a bee hat, but then decide not to. Having finally gotten a Puffy Vest, the last thing I want to do is toss on a new hat and make the world blurry again. I then run off into the dark to find a firefly to make a mining hat for future cave explorations, and then finally remember that Wagstaff has a night vision goggle option, so I won't need fireflies anyways. And speaking of Wagstaff's gadget, I spend the rest of the night pre-crafting a telepad, but haven't decided yet where I want to put it, so I leave it in limbo. Being really indecisive here for some reason, but eventually remember that I need a sewing kit, and after morning arrives I decide to prototype a gold shovel for no apparent reason. I then head over to Thumper to gather a bunch of wood, still carrying 2 shovels for no apparent reason? Yeah, I guess I hadn't had enough coffee yet. Unfortunately, I get too close to the shore and yep, Pengulls have spawned and will be setting up camp right at my base, the one reason I was hesitant to base there in the first place. So I do what any self-respecting Wagstaff would do and try to kill some with a Thumper. Turns out it isn't terribly effective and takes 5 hits to kill one, assuming you can keep it in the damage radius of the Thumper, which I've learned is much smaller than the break tree radius of the Thumper, and yes, that's also a registered trademark term. I replant the trees and then head to base to mess around with the Pengulls. So remember in the first video of the playthrough where I talked briefly about my overall philosophy of playing the game just to have fun? Well, here's an example of that. Since I've got these noisy and annoying Pengulls at my base, I decided to play around with them for a bit. First, I try burning a log in the middle of them to see if that will do enough damage to burn them to death, but unfortunately, they seem to get away from the log fast enough that they likely aren't taking much damage. Now, if I had some gunpowder, I could have pushed them all together at night and blown them all up, but sadly I haven't let any eggs rot yet, as it's usually easier to just get rotten eggs from abandoned Pengull camps in late winter or early spring, so that's not an option. So I kill moleworms for the rest of the night as I need it to be daytime to try my next idea, which is to see if the local McTusk is interested in helping with my Pengull problem, knowing full well that the Pengulls will actually take him out, which is always satisfying to watch anyways. Unfortunately, their camp is too far from his home and he never engages with them, but somehow wee McTusk sicks his hounds on me, one of which I take out while the other bites a Pengull and likely gets insta-gibbed by the birds. So I give up on McTusk and start doing it the old-fashioned way, only to have another flock spawn. Thankfully, this group is camping away from my base, and I thereafter focus on killing my local flock without getting too close to the shore to spawn anymore. So while I'm at it, here's how you kill a flock of Pengulls by yourself. First and foremost, wear armor. They will kill you dead fast if you have more than a couple attacking you at once and you don't have any armor on. But since they like to toboggan on the snow when you get too close, you can easily chase one away from camp and then kill it pretty fast. If you get near the others while the combat music is still playing, they'll see you as a threat and start chasing you. It's been a long time since I fought Pengulls and I couldn't remember if it was possible to kite them, but it looks like it isn't. So I just tanked the smaller groups and soon enough the flock is gone and I got a surprising amount of meat from them, given that per the wiki, the drop chance for meat is just like 10%. I spend the next little while managing my food stores, making jerky, eggs, etc., and then I go ahead and mine the glaciers from the now vacant Pengull camp. I eventually decide to go ahead and put my telepad right next to base and contemplate placing a telebrella at each touchstone so that if I die, I can just warp straight back to base. But the telebrella does require flowers, and I prefer to do that in spring when I can also catch butterflies to replant replacement flowers. I take a brief moment before dawn to look at the places I'll explore, and when morning arrives I make sure my warmth cap is topped off and then head out to explore. At the pig village north of base I get to witness an amusing war zone of pigs versus spiders. I think stuff like this is pretty hilarious to watch, and the spiders that don't starve generally crack me up. I watch for a while as the pigs get their pigskins handed to them and then decide to step in and help them out. Eventually our forces rout the spiders, but then it turns to dusk and the pigs all run home, so I continue my journey into the mosaic. It's now dusk of the 30th day, prime time for Deerclops to arrive, but instead I'm greeted with the sound of baying hounds. Eventually I drop a fire and wait for the dogs to arrive. There are only 3 hounds in this wave and they go down fast in my fairly fresh ham bath. I'm still wondering if I'll get a Deerclops or not this winter, but the rest of winter will have to wait for the next episode. So it's looking like about 10 days in-game is about as long as I want these episodes to run. So the next episode will likely get us through the end of winter and 5 or so days into spring. Will Deerclops arrive at long last? Will I be more prepared for spring than I was for winter? Only time will tell. If you're enjoying these episodes, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you'll be notified of future entries. And I'll see you in the next one. Cheers!